Welcome back to episode 55 of the Block Runner podcast. I'm your host, William, always here with your co-host, Iman.
What's going on, Willis?
And today we bring you a very, very special guest, Federico Molina, CMO of Decentraland. And so he's joining us today to talk about everything, with Decentraland launch, to our opinions on the builder. And welcome, Fede. How you doing, man?
Thanks. I'm doing great. Thanks for the invite. And I'm hoping to answer as many questions as I have.
Yes, and before we get started, we actually sent a bunch of questions to Federico, and some of those questions are probably a little, hard in the sense, but really we want to make this into a conversation. So let's kick this conversation off with make sure that we're on the same page with Decentraland and what we're doing with the Block Runner and MetaZone. We want to make sure that you guys know we want the same things that you guys want. Right? We want people to come back to Decentraland and either play games or just interact with anything that's been developed on the land itself. And we just want to establish to make sure that we're on the same page, and these questions are more to figure out what Decentraland is thinking, what we're thinking, and make sure that our goals are aligned, right? So that's sort of kind of what we're thinking with these questions. So I want to get your first thoughts on the whole launch of Decentraland. I think on your blog post you had like 12,000 visitors. You ended up giving away like 700,000 mana or something like that. So give us your take on the launch.
I think that attendance-wise, it was very successful. We had 14K active users in the span of less than a week. So that was really, really positive. And where I think we could have done a better job is on support, because there are a lot of transactions were failing with the chest, and people were getting a lot of doubts and didn't know how to retrieve the rewards or how to get the rewards, and we didn't have a solid supporting plan. So things were kind of unorganized, and we were answering as much as we could in Discord, email, and other channels. So I think that's a big learning for the next time. But we are pretty happy with the outcome.
Do you see the chest launch event being something that happens every now and then? Is that something that Decentraland wants to pursue?
I think we don't have any in the foreseeable future, but I think that it's a good incentive for people to join and to have fun and inside Decentraland. So I don't rule it out for the future.
Okay. So with the launch now, kind of like in the past, what is the focus for Decentraland now? We're big readers of the roadmap, so we know everything that's going on the roadmap. But I want to get bigger picture sense of what the focus is for the team in terms of like, do you want to get players to come to the land, or do you want to attract developers? I mean, what's the focus?
I think the focus at the moment is making Decentraland engaging social experience, so people can hang out and make friends inside Decentraland and be able to play with their friends, and while at the same time enjoying quality content, engaging content. So those are the focus. How do you achieve this? Well, we need to work a lot on the product itself to offer social capabilities, better performance, better also capabilities for the developers, etc., etc. But I think the main focus is, like I said, for the next quarter is making Decentraland like an enjoyable social experience.
Okay. So do you foresee the Decentraland being a place where people can earn passive income, or what's the end goal do you see for Decentraland? Like, what in 10 years, what do you see people doing in Decentraland?
Yeah, I'm no futurist, but I think that everything I said would be like a wild guess. But I think by 10 years, I envision Decentraland with like millions of users and not a single use case, but like a lot of use cases. Some of them we're starting to see now, like the art galleries, like the casinos, more advanced experiences. I don't know, clans, groups.
Sure.
So a lot of things. I could go on forever, but if you tell me what will be the biggest use case, I can't really tell you. I would be lying to you.
Yeah, I think we kind of
we kind of have this discussion all the time, because you guys are kind of like I want to know if you're the first, if Decentraland is the first actual proof of concept of what a decentralized application is. I mean, there's probably others out there, but this is probably the biggest scale example of what a decentralized application looks like. Mm-hmm. So we're always having internal conversations of like how much responsibility is on Decentraland team's end as far as like delivering the future of the product. Is it more on the shoulders now of the community? You know, you guys already launched your DAO.
I think that starting from the public launch, a lot of responsibilities is being transferred to the DAO and to the community. To give you an example, the DAO now owns all core smart contracts and is responsible for any change in the future protocols, and will start ramping up with more and more responsibilities and more decisions. So that's why it's so complex to also foresee what's going to be in the future, because it will be the decision of the community itself also.
Yeah, and on top of that, you know, trying to answer the 10-year question is tough for everybody, because when Ethereum first launched in, what was it, 2013?
2014, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Nobody could have envisioned the DeFi ecosystem, right? Nobody could envision NFTs.
Or STOs.
Or
ICOs. Yeah. Well, I guess ICOs were kind of like a given from the beginning, but the point is, the platform was created and then the community came afterwards, and you know that's whenever the real innovation started happening.
That's exactly right.
So yeah, I guess you can correlate like this. We're basically in those 2014 phase era of this type of metaverse experience. So
so and we are focused on, and the community is also focused in improving it in the, like, more in a short-term vision. Like thinking of the 10-year, I think it won't be useful at the moment for the product itself, but it's a nice exercise to have.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because kind of like what Iman was saying, essentially that we can't really know what the future holds for a lot of these platforms, and that the community is responsible for building them. And so we have to sort of come to like an agreement in terms of the goal. As should we focus on developers, or should we focus on the general player? Because
there's like a chicken and egg scenario right now.
Yeah, because like, how do you attract players if there's no content, and then how do you attract developers if there's no way to sustain developers creating, you know, creations? So I think there's got to be a collective force on both our part, because like I said earlier, we're on the same team. We want exactly what you guys want, is more people coming into Decentraland. And my opinion is that if the platform Decentraland and us, you know, our activities focus on bringing on developers, I think we can achieve a higher daily active user rate than what we're currently seeing. Because after it launched, we saw a lot of activity on our parcels, and as well as our hosts who are deploying our games. And after that week, it sort of dropped off the cliff, which we sort of expected.
Yeah.
But now the activity should be like, what should we both be focusing on? Is it developers or is it players? And in my opinion, I think it's developers. So is that also a focus for your team as well, to bring on developers to create content?
Yeah, it's improving the product for players and also improving the tools for developers. Like, it's kind of a trade-off that it's a challenge that a lot of platforms that arises for a lot of platforms. Like they have a demand and an offer side, and in some point you have to choose which one to subsidize. That's why we are seeing. We are working with some creators with a creator program that we'll see them working on a more long-term vision of their experiences. So when those experiences are in place, people can also, so players can enjoy the world, more, and so on. So it's like you say, there's no recipe, but you have to pick a side, which one to subsidize, and go from there.
Right. So I would be going against our community by not asking this, but why focus on the builder? Like, what's the vision behind the builder?
So the builder lets people that do not have abilities to code or artistic skills develop to build things inside the world. At the moment, it's not very sophisticated, so you cannot make a lot of engaging experiences. But the idea is to evolve this into a product where you would be able to do engaging scenes.
Mm-hmm. Engaging in what way? Because
engaging basically it's so they will have replay value. People won't like play once and then drop off and never come back. Mm-hmm. That's what we mean by engaging.
Okay. So let's walk through a scenario. So we're thinking that if a few years down the line somebody creates something with the builder and deploys it on their land, we can't foresee a scenario where said creator builds this scene and it be worth the effort to build on and deploy on their land. And I think it seems like the builder doesn't really have the intended, I guess, goal in like having the replayability. I mean, yeah, you can connect a leaderboard to it, but the actual content that can be deployed with the builder, as far as I can tell for right now, doesn't have that replayability. And because we've seen people build stuff and deploy them, but there's no reason to come back. Is it really because there isn't that functionality built into the builder yet?
Exactly.
Is that your opinion? Okay.
Yeah. So the idea is the builder to be a lot more robust in the future, allowing also developers to use it, and maybe they want to build some code outside the builder, but then they use the builder to plug in things more easily. So if you look at the builder right now, yes, it's very challenging to build something with replay value. I think there have been some cool creations though in the past, but yes, it's very time demanding and very hard. Mm-hmm. But it's something that that sits in the roadmap to improve the functionalities and the robustness.
Yeah, I mean, I understand like the purpose of the builder, and I understand it's really to help engage the player base in creating stuff. I just don't see a way that we can that the builder could be upgraded to have that replayability compared to what you could get out of the SDK. Now, I know that the SDK requires actually coding experience, and it requires a certain tier of a person to contribute to a world where it's only based in the SDK. But if you go back to when the internet was first created, there was no such thing as a no-code website builder, right? It was all like developers were creating the internet. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's the same case for Decentraland. If we focus our resources on attracting and making the SDK better versus making the builder better, I think we'd have a better return on investment focusing on the SDK.
But focusing on the builder, improving the builder doesn't mean that we are not going to improve the SDK at the same time. So you are attacking the problem from two different fronts.
Sure.
And to give you an example, there's Roblox, which has a very robust editor, and people build cool things with it.
Yeah, Roblox. Yeah, that's true. Roblox is you basically make games without touching any development tools.
Who's making these games though?
The community is.
The community are, and then they're launching these games.
Yeah, and they're launching them.
Okay,
that's true. I mean, that's something that I haven't really considered. That Roblox is like a builder, mm-hmm. but a robust one. Mm-hmm. it's just I don't know. I would need to see this. I would need to see like a robust version of the builder to really.
Yeah, I just think the difference is, it doesn't cost anything to create a Roblox creation. In Decentraland, there's land investment required to do anything.
That's
if
true.
you're trying to contribute any kind of creation to the metaverse, you either have to first invest in this land. So does it make sense to experiment with, essentially the reason why we ask these questions and the focus of our platform Metazone is we identified a problem early on that me as a landowner, when I first bought my land in Decentraland, I was figuring out, okay, I just made a pretty significant investment. How am I going to make some kind of return on this? And there's a large community of people who are asking these same questions, because this isn't like some small chunk of money. This is actually a significant investment.
That's right.
So our focus is providing some type of revenue model for landowners to deploy. So that's why we kind of like we're always back and forth with the builder, whether or not it makes any sense. And I think it's being proven today, at least, that there isn't much return with the builder.
Yeah, and I think given enough like resource support into the builder, I guess I can see it actually being worth the investment. It's hard for us to like really get behind the builder because it just doesn't. We just don't see it yet, but there is a use case, with Roblox where a builder, does have some value. But we have that added, kind of nugget of like variability in the sense that you have to buy land in order to do anything with it.
Yeah.
And so it's not the same with Roblox, right? People can experiment relatively for free. Like they're spending their time making games, but there's not that initial investment where it becomes critical to actually make, some sort of income with your land.
Yes, on the other hand, there's a lot of community members willing to list their land or rent it for free. So I think the initial land investment is not a real blocker if you I think you can work it out with various ways. I'm sure that the DAO will also lend some land or lease it. So yeah, I think the blocking point is more on the capabilities at the moment of the product than on the land itself.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on from the builder and the SDK stuff. So, have you guys looked into what we're doing with Metazone?
Remind me again.
So Metazone is an application that we made that helps landowners generate passive income with our games. So we made 4 games, and landowners buy those games, deploy them on their land, and encourage people to play, right? And so the idea here is that each time players, get into these games, they have to pay 10 mana. And a portion of that mana goes into the daily pot and then the monthly pot. And so there's an incentive for players to continue playing these games to win those prizes, right?
Yes.
And so the basis of the Metazone platform is to make it easy in a few clicks for a landowner to buy, invest in a game, deploy that game in on a piece of land, and earn passive income. And so that's why I say is like we're sort of wanting the same things and increasing the daily active user, because if the daily active users are down, then our hosts, our partners are not generating any income, right? So my question is Decentraland, the team, in a position to continue investing in their community members that are contributing to the world? Is that part of like what you guys have on a roadmap, if you will?
Or is that something that the DAO is responsible for? I know there's funds allocated to the DAO. I think it's around 200 million around that area, correct?
Yeah.
222 million.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think the shiniest example of this is the creator program that we haven't launched yet, but I'm pretty sure it will go through the DAO and it will award grants, provided they meet the teams meet certain milestones. They will be awarded monthly grants to fund their projects. So I think it's in the world's best interest to fund the creators and help them develop their experiences.
Okay. So I guess the only way to get some of that investment money would be to go through the DAO. So there isn't an opportunity to do that now. How soon will the DAO be up in order to make the pitches and
The DAO is already up at the moment.
Well, I'm saying like for use. Like when can we start making those pitches for that investment?
Yeah, you will be allowed very, very soon. I don't have any specific date at the moment.
Okay.
But it will be very, very soon.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Because we want to talk about one iteration of what this pitch might look like. So,
but before that, there's other operations that the DAO that we've heard of is responsible for. One of the big ones is NFT permissions. We have a lot of developers who have been asking, they want to contribute and create their own wearables or their own NFTs for the marketplace, but they don't have any idea how to do that yet. So yeah, if you can kind of elaborate or explain to us what's the NFT creation pathway for any kind of outside developers besides, the Decentraland team.
Sure. So the team is working on this product. I know it's been highly asked by the community.
Yeah.
But we are figuring out the specific mechanics. And all these NFTs go through the DAO before approval. So basically, that's the answer, figuring out the mechanics. But they will most likely go through the DAO before being added to Decentraland.
Yeah, but so you guys don't know the mechanics. You just like what's the actual process? Is there like an application form that these guys have to fill out or what?
We are working on them. I cannot give you specific mechanics at the moment because it would be irresponsible from my part.
Sure.
I want to have everything figured out before communicating, but it's something that we're working on.
Okay.
Yeah, because one of the things that we learned, and as you know very well, Federico, is the fact that its ideas are free, right? Anybody can come up with a really, really good idea. I think the determining factor of whether it makes sense or the success of any idea is the ability to execute.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's, I think that is the filter between a good idea and a successful idea is the ability to execute. So that should be one of the criterias in terms of the determining who can be whitelisted into creating NFTs.
But also, so what is why did Decentraland decide to go down this path instead of like a more free market open system where anybody is able to upload their own creation and then let the market determine, what has value and what doesn't? Like, what is the governing process going to be like for deciding which NFT creators are, whitelisted, like you said?
I think that the first approach will be the DAO, but this doesn't mean that the community might vote on opening up for other alternatives.
I see.
So basically, you're allowing mana holders and land holders to make a decision. It's like, hey, do we make this a free open market, or do we just create this whitelisting, method?
For now, it's going to be what Decentraland has determined it to be, right? But that doesn't mean it's set in stone. There's always that ability for it to be altered in the future.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now, we'll increasingly, like I said before, see a lot of decisions go through the DAO instead of them being like more coming from the team. I think that's one major change after the public launch.
Okay. So going back to the DAO and sort of one of the pitches that we thought of was kind of I don't know if you heard that the decentralized finance community, the DeFi community, they announced that they're supporting games now. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No.
Yeah. So what happened? What happened was the DeFi community is now starting to support games. And one of the iterations that we thought of that could help both Decentraland and us is a way where, let's say the DAO funds our daily and monthly pots, and the way that they fund it is through Compound.Finance. And so you would stake, let's say, $1 million worth of mana into Compound, right? And this million mana can be taken out at any time by the DAO, right? If the DAO decides we don't want to fund these pot mechanics anymore, you just take it out, right? So the million mana at 8% roughly generates around $2,400 per year of interest money. And so if you divide that up per day, that's roughly around 200 to 300 mana per day for funding these daily pots. And so we figured that if we can get this across to the DAO and get this voted in, that would create a much larger daily active user base than what we currently have now. Because right now, on the day of the launch and the week of the launch, we average roughly 100 to 200 mana for the daily pot on our games. And if we can average 200 to 300 daily pot, we might see similar numbers in terms of daily active users from here on till for the year. Because we feel like people are going to want to come back and play for those prizes at the very least. And then, of course, we have hosts who deployed our game, and they're putting up their own money, their own NFTs for their own tournaments on their own land. And so this is happening on a weekly basis. And so we feel like if we can have that investment from the DAO and this is a no loss investment. You get the $1 million principal back, and the interest on that principal is what funds the pot mechanic in the monthly.
So there's a few things that are being accomplished by doing this. For one, it's a good marketing effort on Decentraland's behalf, because all of a sudden you're integrating decentralized finance into the ecosystem, which DeFi movement is probably one of the biggest movements in cryptocurrency right now.
Yeah.
And they're looking for ways to branch. Will just said they just literally announced a couple of days ago a gaming initiative, like for people to figure out how to integrate like the DAI into a gaming ecosystem. And Decentraland's perfect. We already have like a competitive tournament style ecosystem that's already distributed. We have more than 30 hosts. Throughout Decentraland.
Over 60 parcels.
Yeah. So basically, So we're trying to figure out how an everybody wins scenario to where to bring more people onboarded onto the Decentraland platform, and for them to stay. In order to do that, there needs to be more incentive, and I think like Chess Event really proved that. A lot of people came to try and earn these rewards. Now that the rewards have been taken away, we haven't seen similar activity. Yeah. So this no loss proposal you just brought up, I think, is a good solution to that, and we want to know what you guys think of that.
What you think? Initial thoughts.
I haven't analyzed the situation a lot, so I cannot give you an educated view. At this moment, but it's something I'll take away.
To
analyze.
Yeah, we just wanted to put the idea out there is because we need to leverage the community's tools. And one big tool is DeFi. And if we can leverage that in terms of the interest to funding, the daily pot to increase the daily active users, we feel like that would be a pretty good use of the funds. So do you want to talk about what's going on with some of the districts? Do you still see activities with those districts, or is that something that's a model that hasn't proven to work yet?
Well, I was never involved in the district discussions or development or anything.
Okay.
But I was told that the museum, Vegas, the Battleground, the conference center all have seen decent progress.
Okay.
Alongside Ethereum and the university. That's what. Yes, there have been some problems. Like I told you, I'm no expert in districts because the Decentraland surface area is really big. You cannot be in charge of everything or in all the topics. But that's what I'm up to with the districts.
Okay. Yeah, I think there was either discussions or talks or rumors of Ethereum, kind of dissolving and giving out their land back to their players. But we're starting to see that either more often or it just happens to be ending nearly at the same time by coincidence. But if you think about it, Federico, if you had access to, 100 by 100 parcel land, it would be difficult to think about what to put on there. I mean, even for us, we have a platform where we could take advantage of 1,000 parcels, 10,000 parcels. We could, in from a technical sense, we still don't have enough content to populate thousands of parcels. And so it's difficult for anybody to have like control to any district and do something with it. So I sympathize with these district leaders. And it's something that we need to figure out in the sense, like, there's probably a better way to do this. I don't know a better way. That's why we've been offered to deploy stuff on districts, but we can't because we have games that run on 1x1 parcels, right? And so we can't really help contribute to adding to these districts. So we think there's an opportunity here to kind of think of a solution here. But it's just something to kind of think about, essentially.
Yeah,
because it's a tough situation.
So is the scenario going to be, if these districts don't ever pan out how they were initially envisioned to be? Do they have individual ownership over what happens to that land? Or can they just decide on a whim, like, we're just going to dissolve this concept of a united district and open up the land to the general public? Is that something you guys have discussed internally, how that's going to be handled?
I don't know, to be honest. I guess that whatever happens, if the land goes back to the central, and then the DAO will decide what happens. For example, the DAO will vote, should we auction this land? Should we do X or Y or whatever?
Okay.
It's a decision that the DAO will take, but I'm not sure. Like, I'm not futurist, and I can't know what would happen.
Okay.
I can only tell you that that land matters will be decided through the DAO.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. One of the questions that we had is, do you guys still believe that VR has a place for Decentraland?
Well, we think it's a key component of Decentraland's vision. So we really think it has a place in the long run. But we, like I said before, we have bigger challenges at the moment.
Yeah, I totally agree.
One is improving the social experience, like I said. The second one is improving governance for the DAO, and then filling the world with content before arriving to the VR.
Talking about challenges, so I'm sure when you woke up this morning, you didn't really expect to see Bitcoin down 30%, right? So with the sort of downturn of the economy worldwide, with the coronavirus and black swan events, the unpredictable events, how much does this affect the Decentraland team? The fact that Mana just lost, nearly 50% over the last week or two.
Yeah, that's a really good question to ask. Yeah.
No, for me, I cannot talk for the rest of the team, but it doesn't affect nothing. I mean, for me, it's the long run, and I'm used to this.
Yeah.
This thing. So yeah, I can take you with my heart. I don't really care for the swings of the market.
Sure.
If I did, I wouldn't be working in crypto probably.
Yeah, that's a good point. I only ask because it affects the community, right? You could feel that there's a certain feeling of change. There's a sentiment change when the markets go down, and there's a clear difference when the markets are up. And so I was just wondering, does this affect the team in the sense? But in this case, it really doesn't, and kind of makes sense because there's a longer vision here. All right, so let's get to some technical questions. All right, so. Sure. Can you speak on the client release? When can we expect it, and what kind of performance improvements will come of it?
Yeah, sure. First, I want to clarify that there was a really misunderstanding.
Okay.
One of our team members mentioned it was 80% done.
Yeah, I saw that.
We wished it was that way, but it's not like it's like 0% done at the moment. What we did was a very quick prototype, like testing which improvements we could have gotten, but it was something very raw and just for the sake of testing. But we did see some very good improvements in FPS and graphics quality. So It's something really, really encouraging, but it's not, the client is not something that's going to be happening in the short term, unfortunately.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, he did say 80%, but he also said it'll be ready by the end of the year. So, I mean, to me, it didn't sound like 80%. So I had a question based off of like working on the client as a team. So where do you draw the line between the team working on the client and the DAO voting on the team working on the client? How do you know when to draw that line?
So I think it's a learning process also, and I think that that's a good example that the DAO would be a good vote for the DAO. Like, should we work on a desktop client? Yes or no?
Sure.
I think that would be a good question, actually.
Okay. So will there be an API for obtaining scene limitations used by polycounts and textures? Like, will there be an easy way for developers to know when they've reached the limit in creating their stuff for their land?
It's been discussed in the past, but it's not something that it's on the near-term roadmap at the moment.
Okay.
Primarily because I've been told there's some workarounds for this. I'm not 100% sure which they are, but I have consulted with my technical team, and that's what they told me.
Do you think streaming capabilities from video to audio is something that makes sense to work on for Decentraland?
Yeah, they really make sense, but for the long run, they're not being prioritized for the short-term roadmap.
Okay.
But I've seen some scenes that, like there's a DJ in one of the scenes, positional audio, streaming that. So I think some of these can be worked around also at the moment.
Sure.
But we wanted, I mean, the DAO will also vote on this for sure, but I think it should be a first-class citizen in the future.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because we see a lot of use cases where video and audio can really take off in Decentraland. And so I think that's sort of like, the cherry on top of the cake, right? That's not like stuff that, the team should be focused on, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as like the team focusing on stuff, I have a question on when you play Decentraland on the browser, why did you guys make it a closed system where when you click on an ad or you want to interact with MetaZone from Decentraland that you can't just click on something and it'll take you to that web page? Why have that closed system?
I think it was meant to be like this for protecting the users of certain misbehavior.
Okay.
But I think that it was intended that way, actually.
So it was intended that way.
I'm not sure. I didn't partake in this decision, so I cannot tell you for sure it was this. But
sure.
From the top of my head, I think that it avoids some abusing scenarios.
Okay.
Like bad actors.
Sure. So is that something that will stay, part of the platform, or is that something that can be opened up? I guess.
I think it can be completely opened up in the future.
Okay.
I don't see why not.
Okay. That makes sense because, there's a whole, it's a big world out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Decentraland can have hooks into a lot of things. Like you should be able to go into Decentraland and see the stock market and the crypto prices, and you should be able to interact with Trello, inside Decentraland.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. SDK updates have often resulted in breakdown of the individual games that we've deployed. So is there going to be some process where the team kind of informs, other dev teams within Decentraland?
So yeah, this has been really painful for developers, and unfortunately, but it's a short-term priority to fix this and actually allow multiple versions of the SDK work in parallel in the world.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, because if we have like some kind of developer roadmap, and we did have a conversation with Toonpunk on our Discord as well.
Mm-hmm.
We had a discussion on like the clarity of the roadmap,
Mm-hmm.
and like a few months ago there was a marketplace, on the roadmap, and we weren't sure what that marketplace was really going to be focused on. So one of the things that we're requesting from the Decentraland team is essentially more clarity, more definition into the roadmap itself, because there was a point in time where we weren't really sure whether to follow through with MetaZone. And to be clear, so since the 2 weeks since the launch, Federico, MetaZone had a revenue of over 550,000 mana. And so that revenue came from multiple locations: the landowners, players, hosts buying the games and deploying their games, and then players playing on those games. And so, having that sort of platform allows so many people to take advantage of, what Decentraland is supposed to bring to the table, right? So having that clarity in the roadmap itself would really help us kind of navigate what we should be working on and what we shouldn't be working on.
Yeah, I think there's like a division as what we've noticed. I don't want to call out names, but people have been working on projects that all of a sudden are no longer viable, I guess, because the Decentraland has announced, new updates that, has kind of made them obsolete in a way, or at least potentially. So
this is where unfortunate consequences of some releases. We're going to work to change this. Like I said before, supporting multiple SDK versions at the same time, and also improving the communication. There's actually a roadmap online. Have you seen it?
Yes, we've seen it.
Okay. You feel that it needs more detailing?
Yes, it needs more detailing. Like just to give you an example, when we started our podcast and even MetaZone, we've been 100% transparent of everything that we're building. Like nothing that we built so thus far has been in secret to any extent. And I feel like that clarity really helps us kind of bounce ideas off of the community, but as well as kind of make it clear as to what exactly we're building to everybody. And if we got that same clarity from the roadmap itself, we'd know what to build so that we're not building the same thing that Decentraland is building, essentially.
Okay. Yes, well, I'm taking this feedback to the team, and I'm sure we're going to improve communication and visibility.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate that. So now we're going to the marketing questions here. So now the strategy moving forward, at what point does the team plan to ramp up pull for mainstream users? Or is this something the community will need to work on together?
It's something we will work on together, but I think priorities at the moment are set to improve the product, content, and overall experience. Ramping up mainstream users would be like a leaky bucket at the moment for me. Like they will enter and they wouldn't stick around for a lot of time. So we need to work on other things first.
Okay, so your feeling is there's still like a lot of infrastructure things to build before we start really doing the marketing push to bring in people. Yeah,
infrastructure, like the product, tools for developers, improve the SDK.
Okay.
Improving the client reliability and performance.
Sure.
But this doesn't mean that we are not going to be looking forward to increasing the daily active users or weekly active users. It's just that you cannot go from 0 to 200 kilometers per hour.
The very last question is, what is your final message to the community, or anything you want to say to
like creators that are on the sideline, basically?
Yeah,
because we both know creators is what we're lacking most. So what's your pitch to them? Like, why should they focus their efforts or their skills on creating for the metaverse as opposed to more traditional application platform? Like what would you say to them?
So I think it's a great opportunity to get involved in the early shaping of Decentraland. We already seen some scenes like the ones you guys built that are getting some in-game transactions and some decent weekly active users. So I think what you have here is an opportunity to be first mover and get that first mover advantage, basically. So I think that's what I think, and why, if I was a developer, would join Decentraland at the moment.
Yeah, that's a good message, because we feel like we're taking advantage of the first mover advantage.
I think that's a lot. We always kind of like joke around, like what like why are we so driven these days? Like we're like operating on like low sleep most of the time.
Yeah.
And I think it's like that excitement that's within all of us, that we feel like an actual sense of like we're pioneering something that hasn't been done before. It's something we've all dreamed about.
Yeah.
If you're like a gamer or like somebody who's lived on the internet for the last couple decades.
Yeah.
We've all had this like vision in our heads of like what a digital world could look like.
Yeah.
In like a matured state. So that's why we're I guess to any potential creator listening, we also want to convey that message as well, because we need creators just as much as Decentraland does. Because without your talent, without your skill, the players aren't going to come.
Exactly.
So, and that's what it is. I think that encapsulates it. Is that first mover is what you call it?
Yes.
I like to call it the pioneer feeling. I mean, we're like the Americans leaving Europe for the first time. We're going to a new world. That's how I like to view it.
I like that. Yeah. Well, Federico, we want to thank you for your time. I know you're a busy guy. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we can have you back on to answer some more questions later on down the year.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll be happy to join you. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bye-bye. All right. So let's debrief for a good 20-30 minutes max.
Okay.
And
yeah, that was interesting. That was the big Decentraland interview we've all been waiting for.
Yes.
And when you think about it, it's kind of crazy that it went down, because like 7-8 months ago we were just discovering about the project.
That's true.
And like, I mean, we've done tons of other interviews before. So I mean, we've interviewed some pretty big people.
Yes.
Like John McAfee, Andreas Antonopoulos, the Sandbox. So like
Syndicator,
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, no longer is it becoming like, we're not like what's the word I'm looking for? Like intimidated, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
no.
Not intimidated, but
I don't know. I don't know what the right word would be to describe that.
We're just we're getting more comfortable with this whole process. I guess is what I'm saying. But for this one in particular, it was very important to us.
No, yeah. But before we get to how important that was, as true to our signature podcasting and interview style, that we had another glitch.
Yeah.
I don't understand what is happening.
Yeah, we haven't. I don't think we're like 0 for 10 or something like that.
Easily 0 for 10.
I mean, yeah.
So our camera shut off, and we had to like pause in the middle of it. You probably saw it.
Yeah, so we lost about 8 minutes with him.
Yeah,
or 6 to 8 minutes that we could have asked him a few more questions. We were kind of like, we wanted to go deeper into the whole marketing, because we know a lot of people are questioning that. You know, people have their own thoughts and beliefs on whether or not, because like we talked throughout this interview, retention is low, or activity is low,
and to them, like, it's sort of they sort of expected it, and they knew that it was going to happen because they're not finished with the infrastructure of Decentraland.
I think he made that pretty clear.
Yeah, and to when you launch something, you're typically kind of done with the product that you're launching. I mean, if you take the lean method approach, the lean startup approach, you never launch when you're done. If you're launching something when you're done, you're already too late. You're behind. So that's why we keep talking about MVP, a minimum viable product. And so what they've launched, and we've talked about this before, they launched for months at a time, that Decentraland should launch right now, even though that they're not finished.
It's true. We kind of like speculated before they even announced their
way
launch.
months before.
We were ourselves, because we were already building, and we're like, what's the holdup? Why can't?
Yeah, as long as you walk around from one corner to the other, you should launch right now.
Because to be honest, like, nothing has really changed since then.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the exact same product as it was like 6 months ago.
Okay, we wouldn't say nothing has changed, right? There's some stability improvements.
Okay, you're right.
You can load faster. There's dancing, right?
That's true.
So there's been additions for sure. But for the most part, like, there's a bunch of builder builds, right?
Yeah.
That's that's what you're going to see in Decentraland. You have to like go to dclplazas.com and go to their map and see all like the hot spots for sure.
Yeah.
But other than that, like you're right, not much has changed. I mean, I get your point, but I don't want to make it seem like nothing has changed.
But basically, they did what we were wanting them to do. Like just the debate back then that we had is when are they going to announce a launch to this thing? Are they going to wait till it's like a polished, AAA tier product and then announce a launch, or are they going to
late?
Or are they going to do like a Minecraft style? The beginning is like an MVP product that will evolve over time.
Yeah,
and that's what we were kind of like hoping they would do, and that's basically what they're doing, what they did, and we're moving on with that basically.
Yeah. So I thought, I mean, it was a pretty decent interview. I think. There was some stuff that he couldn't answer just because he didn't really know the answer, especially, the SDK stuff and some of the more technical questions. And ultimately, what I took away was they're not done building Decentraland, essentially.
Well,
in the sense from the infrastructure standpoint, right? They're not at a point. I keep saying we, but they're not at a point where they're ready to do the huge marketing push that we kind of all want to happen already.
Yeah.
And that's probably why they're okay with the low DAU numbers, daily active users. They're pretty much okay with everything because they know that they're not finished. So I get that perspective, and I sort of tend to agree.
The only problem is like it's for our situation, it's difficult to cope with that kind of response because we're actually building a
sustainable thing right now.
Yeah, we have a business model already operating. It's in like full gear, and we have customers. We have
but most importantly, any deploying metas is an investment, right? We all know Decentraland can't be shut down, right? It's going to persist, and we all know that it's up to the community to continue building stuff.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're setting the bar. We're setting the bar. We're allowing developers to monetize their creations. We're allowing landowners to monetize their land. I mean, that is how we start this world. And I think everything that we've done now, I wouldn't consider anything less than important. And so I kind of like everything that we're doing. I like that people are understanding there's a better way to monetize their land rather than flipping it. And I think encouraging developers to monetize their stuff, like for example, we got Benson, the guy who did the Infinity Engine, and we got Nicholas who did the Dragons recently, and the Dragon stuff was extremely popular just like a week ago.
Oh yeah.
And so if we can get those,
as to be expected, right? Like these are the types of additions to the metaverse that we're missing, we're lacking.
Yes.
Like all of a sudden, there's an emotional attachment to something within the world.
Yeah.
This little pet.
Yes. That's right.
That's what we're always concocting ideas of, like how to, retain player retention, I guess. Retention.
Yes.
And this is like an obvious one. So yeah, go back to it. Like,
well, I was just saying, is like because we have a platform where they can monetize their creations, and it makes it easy for landowners to deploy those creations, and even players. Like for example, a player can log into metazone.io, buy the dragon, and take care of their dragon over at Nicholas's land. And from there, you don't even have to own land, but you have a reason to come to Decentraland now.
Yeah, exactly.
And so these types of creations, they're going to be important for the sustainability of Decentraland, especially early on now. And any creator that's building anything right now worth value, like people are buying in Metazone, like you're one of the first movers.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to be the model dragon creator for all the other ones who are going to be creating their Tamagotchi pets.
Yeah.
Right?
So I think what the main thing I got out of this interview that stuck with me is a lot of his answers to a lot of the questions was basically like the DAO is going to handle it. So the importance of the DAO, I think right now is like understated. A lot of people, because it's a brand new concept.
Yeah.
And we're always talking about this. This is like, to me, this is the most interesting part of this whole experiment.
For sure.
Is like, how the hell are humans going to manage to organize without that like centralized hierarchy of decision making?
Yes.
Because that's how we've done it throughout history. All of a sudden, we're decentralizing that to where everybody in the platform is equal, and then now we all have to come to consensus in order for changes to be made.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like we're all looking at Decentraland because they created this platform. Like, hey, are you guys gonna do this? Are you guys gonna do that? When? You know, we're kind of like pitchforking them a little bit.
Yeah.
You know,
and ultimately, it's up to the DAO to make that decision.
That's basically what that's what he told us for everything.
Yeah, and you know, I asked him like. Because it doesn't feel like it's implemented, right? It doesn't feel like it because they're still making the decisions, they're still updating, and they're still their normal team
exactly.
self.
If the DAO was as essential as
he says it was,
then really they shouldn't be able to. Their roadmap is basically
up to
a
vote.
Yeah, it's as credible as our roadmap essentially,
right.
In a true DAO
system.
But I don't think that's how things are going to go down.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean,
so that's the biggest thing we have to, as a community, kind of like work around is understand like basically everything has to be.
Maybe there's a cutoff point in terms of the roadmap that says, okay, from here on out, like every decision, we're gonna post the future roadmap, but every decision from here on out is gonna be voted on.
Yeah,
and then you have to wrap your mana and then cast your vote, and then see which choice wins, and that's what they build.
I think that's another big issue is like not enough people are wrapping their mana, so there's not enough participation.
Yeah,
you know, I mean it's difficult to keep up with.
See, but that's how reality is.
Yeah,
you know, when voting for the president,
everything
it's like 30% people show up.
Yeah, but it's hard to get the message out there as far as like if there's some kind of proposal being done. You know, usually, what's it called? Politicians have to spend tons of money to market those ideas. You know,
true.
That's literally what campaigning is about. So, like, what is the campaign process going to be like for anybody? Right now, it's like a Discord chat, right?
It's a Discord, yeah.
We just
Basically
went to that Discord. Before this interview, we checked that Discord. We're like, hey, let's see how the DAO is doing.
Yeah,
and I think there's maybe 10 posts this whole year or something like that. There's not much discussion going on.
Yeah, from
a community standpoint, you would think if like.
Well, hold on. So
okay.
There's not a whole lot of contributors into this community yet.
What do you mean?
Like, there's not a whole lot of people like us contributing into this world, like developers and stuff. There's not a whole lot of them. There are some, but not a whole lot. And so if any one of us has a proposal, I mean, I guess we start posting it on the DAO. Now, on the Discord chat as like, you know, to start the campaign.
Yeah.
And then you do the official like casting in through their DAO system.
Okay.
Right. It has like a formal process.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're an early mover, I would imagine that any proposal is going to get voted in.
You would think.
I mean, I'm imagining.
Yeah, to be determined.
Or we can easily get trolled by somebody who has like a couple million mana, and they're like, nope.
Nothing
because for you.
The weight of the vote is determined on how much mana you own.
Basically, correct? Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not only based on mana; it's also based on land. But nonetheless, I mean, just to make the conversation simple.
Yeah.
Like the more mana you have, the more power you have, essentially.
Yeah. So this is all, like I said, this is the most fascinating part of this all, because man, how things get accomplished in this type of environment, we'll see. You know, I mean, because it's easier just to do the obvious route, right? Like the centralized thing.
Yeah, I want to pull up some of the questions that we didn't get to.
Okay.
And give me a second here.
Oh, we're gonna answer them ourselves, or what?
Not that we're gonna answer them, but more of like acknowledging that.
That's right.
There's still some other questions.
Yeah, unfortunately, we you know, if you guys are in the Discord who are watching this, we ran out of time, basically.
Yeah. So land mortgages, that's one question. I think that comes often in the Discord, like even in the Decentraland Discord. Mm-hmm. People are asking for land mortgages. I think it's definitely a great idea. I just don't know if there's a lot of developers looking for land right now. I could be wrong. I would think that we have a pretty, strong community of developers in our own Discord right now, but it's clearly not everybody.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know how many developers are looking for land at the moment, but it's something to consider. So that was one of the questions that we didn't get into. And I don't think a land mortgage is something that Decentraland is ever going to build. In my opinion, I don't think they're going to do that. I think the community needs to do that.
So what does that product look like?
It's just a smart contract. You submit your land. It says anybody. You say I submit land. Anybody can use it for free for X amount of time, or that you submit land. You can use this land for 1,000 mana a month, and that's it. Like that simple.
Yeah.
And it's pretty easy to do. I mean, it's just a matter of doing it. There's nothing complicated about this at all.
So what's been the holdback? Just nobody's been willing to do it?
Well, nobody's been willing to build that smart contract.
Interesting.
I mean, that's from what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
What's one thing you're doing to attract new developers to Decentraland? That is an important question. I think it goes back to what Federico was saying with the builder and the SDK. There's like a misconception, I guess, that they're focusing on one over the other, but they're really focusing on both. And I understand his point on, the Roblox example, where they have a builder and it's a robust builder and people are monetizing that builder.
Yeah.
I think GTR Frost, he built something in Roblox.
That's right.
It's one of those that, it was like another game, but it didn't get enough traction to like surpass some threshold where he could start earning money.
So the way those people in Roblox monetize is essentially they did just create a game, like a little mini game with this Roblox like a builder engine or whatever, and then they just sell it. It's like a microtransaction for
something
the players
like that.
to purchase.
I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I've seen like my little nieces and nephews play that game, and they're like always begging me for Robux, whatever their currency is called. And I see them spend most of it on like in-game skins, like wearables for their characters.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of those games have like a paywall. Like you can't even enter the realm essentially unless you pay.
Well,
and I think the same goes for Minecraft too. I think.
Well, I think in Minecraft, you stand up your own server. You manipulate Minecraft as to your will, like make your own hunting game, if you will.
Like a Halloween land or
something like that. And people buy like these chests in there to a certain extent, and that's how they fund, standing up that server for that particular game.
Yeah.
But
so that kind of like answers my question. Is like before this interview, I was curious like what Decentraland's real vision is. I don't think Federico was able to answer that because he wasn't around from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So that's a question you really want to ask the visionaries, the creators of the platform itself. So this builder stuff kind of makes me think it's more of like a game experience. That's what they want to hone in on. When I think of an actual metaverse, my ideal vision of it is it's not as limited as a game. I think of it as literally like a second reality outside of what our existence. Because like I myself, I've participated in virtual realities like World of Warcraft, where I prioritized my living. My bandwidth of life to a virtual world and prioritize it over like the real world. Like I would go to school. I would play that game, go to sleep at 3 a.m, wake up at 6 to go to school, and I would sleep for my first 3 classes and then go back home and just go right back to grinding and WoW. So obviously I cared way more about my virtual existence than my physical existence. And what did I get out of it? Not much.
Right.
Just some good old memories. That's about it.
Yeah.
But that's when I think of what Decentraland can be, the potential of it. I'm looking for something like that, where I'm not looking for like another app store of games. I'm looking for literally like
an escape,
a full blown escape. It sounds weird, but where you can actually go there and earn a living. You can make some money there. You can find a job. You can find employment through whatever the community ends up creating that layer for. You go there, and then you could use that income to experience what the rest of the metaverse has to offer, essentially.
Yeah.
The gaming is one part of it, the shopping, the art, everything. So it's just confusing, I guess, when you think about it.
Well, when they focus on the builder, the builder right now as a product is, according to Federico, is not finished.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to imagine what the builder, a finished builder, is when they expect it to be like the thing that populates the world.
Yeah.
Like I can't even imagine what that looks like.
Well, it looks like a bunch of like Roblox mini games, essentially.
Yeah, but those Roblox mini games, if you compare those games compared to what an SDK might do for Roblox.
Well, that's why I said, they're not neglecting. It's probably like two separate teams, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like so the reason
it's
is
just like I don't see the vision in Builder, but since it's not finished, I can't. I have to give them the benefit of the doubt.
That's true. Your big issue with it was that you think they were like prioritizing that over the SDK.
Well, I think it's not a priority. I never thought the Builder was a priority. I thought they were spending resources on the Builder, which I didn't think made sense.
It's true. Yeah.
So
well, maybe we have a bias because we're just not using it.
Well, there's nothing to use in the Builder.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, you're right.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Like
right now,
but it's not finished.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's a chance, right? This ship could float with the Builder.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see it. And
I mean, and that's what people like. People love that, like the potential to create. Whether it's with Minecraft or Roblox. Pretty soon the sandbox. That's basically their big value proposition.
Yeah, exactly.
Is like they're giving the community a tool to create.
But Sandbox crafted their entire platform around user-generated NFTs.
Yeah,
that is their lifeblood. If there are no users, there's no Sandbox.
Yeah,
but it's not the same for Decentraland. It's not. Sandbox is a game created by the users. Decentraland is a world populated by users, right? Whether it's from the builder or the SDK. And so if it's populated by the users, in my opinion, I think the SDK has a lot more staying power, a lot more replayability potential, all the things that will make Decentraland a place you return. I think it's going to be because of the SDK.
Yeah. No, you used a good analogy by comparing it to like the early days of the internet. There wasn't no coding infrastructure in those days. The people who actually created the internet were the developers.
That's right.
They the ones
and then once the internet started becoming a little bit more understanding, more fluid, more like you understood the purpose of the internet, then it was like, hey, I can make my dev tools into no code builder apps.
Yeah.
And then you have things like, if you haven't checked out Webflow, you should. It's a really cool custom website building application. Not sponsored, by the way, but
just fanboy.
It's just an example of like the power of a no-code builder.
Yeah.
Right. But I just don't think Decentraland is at that point to be building no-code builder stuff. So, but again, it's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, maybe they'll prove us wrong, and then when they do, we'll definitely like, bow down or something.
Yeah. We'll tip our hats.
Yeah.
We will concede. We have no problems being wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, just a few months ago, I told Iman, there's no way we're going to see a $5,000 Bitcoin ever again.
You're right.
And good old coronavirus came by and said, nope.
Yeah, man. That's another topic all in itself. Like this whole safe haven asset that crypto has been, or Bitcoin in particular, has been spouting over the last couple of years.
Yeah, but it's with perspective, the safe haven, because Bitcoin's not going to $100.
No,
right?
But a safe haven asset is like whenever shit's hitting the fan in the traditional market, you put your money there. As it's supposed to be non-correlated, right?
Yeah,
as far as we've seen, it's 1,000% correlated.
Yes.
So Bitcoin failed the benchmark. It definitely failed the test, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like I'm no longer am I going to spout that whole uncorrelated asset thing, because this is the event. True. This is the event we've all been waiting for.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like prove the concept of and obviously Bitcoin's still in its early days, so it's not this like non-volatile asset like that gold is.
Yeah.
And to be fair, gold is also going down pretty big.
Yeah.
So
for gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5%.
Which is like huge.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin's not like, it's not done.
It's not disconnected to the world.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's not like how we initially thought it would be, but
yeah. But going back to Decentraland, I enjoyed this interview. I think we need to have more conversations with the rest of the team as well.
Yeah.
Because we want to get the longer term vision of Decentraland. We want to see if they're we're aligning with what they're hoping to leave, their mark on the world,
Yeah, definitely.
Some other questions, what idea do you have for retaining gamers long term? Another one was, do you think attracting new users or developers should be a priority on the long term? So I think we've sort of answered those questions in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
They're still building the infrastructure of Decentraland. That's the main takeaway. Yeah. So if they're still building like the infrastructure, there's no sense in focusing on bringing players.
Yeah, agreed.
So how many users simultaneously online in DCO can hold present? I think that's another question we'll have to ask at another time. Is any work being done on a method to track foot traffic on parcels? What is the best way to encourage landholders to build on their land? Yeah, that's a valid question. Like what encouraged us to build the game? So let me give you the short story of how we started. So March 2019, we were like, hey, man, you like crypto?
Mm-hmm.
I like crypto.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we just talk about it and record it?
Yeah.
Right? That's how it started.
Yeah.
And we literally just bought a microphone. We set it up at the dinner table.
Yeah. We used to have like conversations like at like lunches or dinners, and then we would talk for like a couple hours about crypto, and we'd be like, dude, we're awesome, dude. Our combos are great. It's like, is anybody else talking like about crypto like this cool? So we're like, we're so cool, like everyone else should listen to our conversations.
Yeah,
basically.
right.
Like our hubris is like so high.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of crazy? Like the whole idea of podcasting being like, people listening to other people.
Yeah.
Talk, but as far as like Decentraland goes, I mean, shit, I don't know. I mean,
so let's give
I'm going too far ahead.
Yeah. You already skipped everything.
Yeah.
So we were having good conversations. We were recording it, and a few months down the line, we're like, hey, have you seen this Decentraland thing?
Mm.
And we got interested. We interviewed Maddie, DCOblogger.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got us to understand like what the vision was for Decentraland.
Yeah.
And then Corv, my brother, he saw the interview with Maddie, or he listened to it. And at the time, we weren't doing videos.
No, just the podcast.
Yeah, it was just the audio.
Audio, yeah.
And he was like, "Dude, this is cool."
Yeah.
A week later, he comes over and he says, "Look what I built in Decentraland." And like it was in the preview, and it was like this guy just jumping over these walls. And of course we had talked about like what to build and why build it.
Yeah.
And so we started with the Block Runner, the game, right? Yeah. That some of you already know.
Mm-hmm.
And we've thought about the pot mechanics in those days. We knew that if we were going to build this, it had to be sustainable because the developer's time is extremely expensive, valuable. You don't want to waste it. You want to come out with the MVP, launch it, see what people think, and make it better. So the game came out on preview. Decentraland launched their beta. You could play our game day one of the beta. As a matter of fact, the launch of the beta and the launch of the Block Runner game happened on the same day on a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to go searching for that, it's there.
Yeah.
So then, people played the game. They understood the concept, leaderboards, all that stuff. Then months went by, and we were talking to Corbin. He was like, "Hey, it's pretty complicated to deploy this stuff. Why don't we create an app that makes it easy to deploy stuff on other people's land?"
Mm.
So then we had the concept of franchising these games, or franchising the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we're like, well, we can make other games, franchise those, and have those games be running on other people's lands, and we share profits and the whole MetaZone thing like started just like from deploying a single game into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so from what I understand, like from Federico, we need to do a better job of letting people know what MetaZone is, what is it that we're doing, because he wasn't aware. I don't think we've made enough noise. I don't even know if we should be making more noise than we are. Because after making, we talked about it in the discussion, 2 weeks of the launch, we made 550,000 mana revenue.
Yeah.
I don't know what people consider that as a lot of money or a little money. I'm not really sure what that means to like the community, but I'm pretty confident nobody else was making 550,000 mana.
Yeah, I think it's a case study of what's possible. Basically.
Exactly. That's another thing that we didn't really get to talk to, but I don't know if Decentraland should or wants to use us as like a case study to show other developers, like, look at what we're doing. You could be contributing to that degree, either if it's as simple as submitting stuff into MetaZone or creating your own DApp of some other service that Decentraland needs.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Even if you wanted to compete with MetaZone, that's good for us. The more creators, the better. Like that. I mean, that's at least the position I take.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we need to do a better job, like talking about what we're doing. I don't know if we become shills at this stuff. Like that's not what we want to do either.
Well, it's because, like you said, we're on the same team and we're all chasing the same goal, and we recognize the problems together, and we're coming up with solutions. So one of the biggest problems is we know there's creators out there who want to create and contribute, but they're reluctant for many reasons. I tried bringing up one of the reasons. The cost of land is an obvious barrier. We've been told by developers in our Discord, like, the only reason they're not creating anything is because the land is too expensive.
Right.
So,
but is it because land is expensive we don't have developers? Is it that simple?
Well, that's one of the reasons.
My answer is no.
Yeah,
it's not that simple, because you have the preview builder.
Yeah.
You have the preview. You have infinite land in the preview. You test your parcels, you test your games, you test everything in the preview without having to deploy in the real world, and it functions nearly the exact same way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's production build essentially. If you deploy in the preview, it's nearly production build. Now, it's not production build, but nonetheless, I mean, it's as close as you need without requiring somebody's land.
Yeah, you could test whether or not the game functions how you want it to function, but you can't
test like actual users.
Yeah, you can't test whether or not like your idea even makes sense. Like if it's an actual viable consumer product, and at the end of the day, if you're trying to run a business, that's kind of like very important.
Yeah. No, for sure. For sure.
So, I mean, and MetaZone solves that problem for a lot of people. Like, a lot of these creators are going to onboard and deploy their creations so that people who own this expensive land can populate it with their creations.
Yeah. And that's true. I mean, a lot of people want to try out the games, play the games first before they buy, which is understandable.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, the only reason why we decided to do a pre-sale on the Corona Zombie game is because we've already come out with 4 other games. I mean, there's some reasonable confidence that we're going to come out with a 5th game.
Yeah.
And so we're able to do that because our history. But that's not something that, we could allow other creators to do pre-sales, but we can't allow anybody just to raise funds and just like disappear.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely not ideal, but I think in like in an open market system, you let them come up with
do your own research again.
Exactly. You leave it up to the market. If people are willing to invest in something, I mean, that happens like in what's that, Kickstarter?
OpenSea or
no, like that.
Kickstarter, yeah.
Kickstarter.
Yeah.
There's been tons of examples of that.
Yeah, but there's also tons of examples of like those scams.
Yeah.
Right. So
I mean, what do? Do they vet every Kickstarter idea?
No, they don't.
They don't.
They can't.
You can't.
Yeah.
So you just let the market do what the market does. Essentially, I think that's the way to operate, in my opinion.
Yeah, public service announcement. If you're going to be investing in anything, just do your own research. Essentially. Yeah. And that includes, buying stuff on MetaZone, right? There's no different.
Yeah. The best thing you can go by is if whether you actually check to see, because that's why we have the zones listed on the website. You can actually go to the physical locations of these meta deployments and see if they're actually real.
Yeah.
You go out there and take a look at them. It's like, hey, I'll spend a couple mana or a couple 20 mana, play a couple game sessions, make sure this game functions, everything's as advertised. Okay, it is. Now I feel a little bit more confident to purchase,
So do you think we need to talk about more, MetaZone, like be more public about it, or what do you think? I mean, even like people in the Decentraland team, they don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. No, I mean, shit. We have a lot to do, like you said, to make more noise. We need to put things on Medium. So, that's a very important thing.
So the main things that we're working on are really two main things, right? They're two infrastructure builds.
Yeah.
And one of them is NFTs, and the other is smart contracts.
See, but that's the thing. Like, now I'm thinking about it. Making noise doesn't mean shit. I mean, there's a lot of projects that made a ton of noise, and they delivered dust.
Yeah, but the ton of noise that they made was with a white paper.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
We got
well, that's what I'm saying. We're focused on actually creating something that's actually,
See, but imagine if we combined creating something with actually making noise. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, the noise is, I guess this podcast is helping a lot.
Yeah,
and we appreciate all the followers and subscribers and, the community, man. You guys make all this worth it.
Our Discord is always on fire for the most part.
Yeah.
Like we're collecting all the developers, and because we're making, their creations monetizable now. Right.
And I think also people they trust us, because of this.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that we're willing to just dude, everything's in the open, man. We're not hiding anything, and we want, we want everyone in the discussion, the whole community. We don't want it just to be like everything's behind a curtain.
Yeah.
And then we'll announce it one day. You know what I mean? Just stay tuned.
Yeah, and so there's probably a bit of confusion in terms of NFTs. So there's a DAO process to allow NFTs into Decentraland, and we're talking about, let's say you want to create a T-shirt, a wearable in Decentraland.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go through the DAO, and the DAO has to approve you, and then now you can sell a T-shirt or whatever, create T-shirts. But the NFTs we're talking about does not have to go through the DAO. So the NFTs that we talk about is if you buy a meta, that with the purchase of the meta that can be deployed in Decentraland comes with an NFT token. Now, our platform makes it easy for any landowner to deploy anything. But in order to deploy, you have to first have this NFT in your address associated to your land. Mm-hmm. And if those two criteria are met, then you can deploy on your land. So if you sell this NFT on OpenSea, which you can do, that new owner will have to look at the metadata of the NFT, and it says to deploy in Decentraland, create a metazone.io account.
Mm-hmm.
And so once that account is created, they have land, and now they can deploy that meta that they purchased on OpenSea on Decentraland.
Yeah.
And the previous owner, that meta just disappears from their land. So that's why there's no need for us to go through the DAO. Now, we're still going to go through the DAO just to make sure that these, that has like a certain degree of approval just to go through the process.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not needed, and they're real NFTs, and they're tradable, and you can buy them on OpenSea if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between like having to go through the DAO where there's a wearable versus the NFTs that we're going to be issuing to our hosts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so those NFTs are in progress, and they're going to be issued to you soon. We can't give you a date just because there's so many moving parts to this. On top of that, we're working on smart contracts for payments. So as a player, as a winner of the daily pod or the monthly pod, or a creator, or even a landowner who is splitting the revenue 50-50, there's going to be every payment is going to happen through smart contracts.
Mm-hmm.
And those smart contracts allow you to go to your MetaZone account and withdraw your funds that you're owed.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't have to wait for us to manually do it.
Yeah.
So those two things are extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
More games are going to be in the pipeline, especially the zombie game.
Yeah.
There's versions of the zombie game that we haven't talked about, but they're extremely fascinating.
Yeah.
In terms of like world building.
Yeah, we're exploring ideas of a more global
RPG pandemic. A global pandemic.
Exactly.
What are the odds?
Yeah, for good reason. We're looking. Players are looking for a reason to explore.
Yeah.
And we're like, we're thinking of
a real outbreak.
Yeah, providing that. So like people who own land, they can have a little piece of this gaming experience, essentially. I think like this isn't a new concept.
No, it's not. Yeah.
Chain breakers, by the way, we haven't talked about. Recently we learned chain breakers. The project is done. Yeah. Or I don't know if it's done, but
they're selling their assets.
Yeah, basically to
a new team.
So, but part of their game was also they're going to have questing zones, spread out throughout Decentraland. Yeah. Which is, it's kind of, we're bouncing around that same concept. With the Corona zombies. Yep. But it's not set in stone, which is like you said.
Once we kind of formulate what we think the RPG element of Corona zombies is going to be, we'll talk about it, and we're going to bounce the ideas off the community. So
definitely.
But for right now, Corona Zombies is an arcade shooter. It deploys on a 1x1, and the more zombies you kill, the more points you get.
Hell yeah.
That's
the marathon of death.
That's stage one of like the outbreak.
Hell yeah.
Essentially.
We take out all our frustrations of the coronavirus like in Decentraland, dude, because this shit is wrecking everything, man.
This is unheard of, unprecedented.
Yeah, man.
Man, 2020 has been fascinating.
Yeah. Every
a train wreck and good at the same time to a certain extent.
Yeah. I mean, we've never lived through anything like this, us personally.
Yeah.
In our lifetimes. The closest thing I could correlate is 9/11.
9/11, yeah.
Where everybody's panicking over the same looming danger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I got a tower of water stacked in my kitchen.
Very nice, Willis. I'm glad you finally listened to me.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I thought you were crazy 2 weeks ago. Well, I wouldn't say crazy, but overboard maybe.
Wow, dude.
Overboard just a little bit, but
just a little paranoid maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, a little paranoid.
But rightfully so. Yeah, rightfully so. You were right.
Yeah, man. I didn't want to be right, but
no, for sure.
I wish I was right enough to buy some S&P puts, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I actually profit off of this, but I probably feel a little dirty profiting off the collapse of the economy.
That's part of the game, dude.
It is part of the game. There's a lot of people doing that right as we speak.
Yep.
So are there any other questions that we need to go through?
Let's see. Would like to know if the short-term marketing efforts are to grow user base. So everyone has similar questions.
Yeah.
User base or the dev community. What can we expect in terms of partnerships, game companies? That would have been a good one.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the marketing questions that we had to skip over because of the camera fault.
That's true.
We were going to ask him if he had any because I was curious because Decentraland team has created a platform. And I'm wondering if they have some kind of plans to create a product to launch through the platform. Because now that they're an individual entity, they have to go through the DAO just like the rest of us.
Yeah.
And I correlate this to EOS. EOS or Block One created the EOS blockchain platform.
Yeah.
And now they're releasing a voice app.
Yes.
On the platform. So I'm wondering if Decentraland is going to do something similar.
Yeah.
But we didn't get to that, unfortunately.
Well, that'd be cool if Decentraland makes some metas and.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. They have more funding than all of us to do, just like Block One had all the funding, right?
Yeah.
$4 billion Block One raised.
Yeah, exactly.
Billions of dollars. With a B. Not an M.
And they got a slap on the wrist with $30 million.
Yeah,
right?
A little
from the SEC?
Unregistered ICO, dude.
Yeah.
What a freaking move. Yeah. Good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so, yeah, they're actually kind of they're making a Twitter competitor, launching it on their blockchain. So, yeah, I was just curious to see if Decentraland had any plans, but it doesn't sound like he would have been able to tell us anyways.
Yeah, the other question was the name NFT. So will there be other functionality to the name NFTs, like mapping a name to an XY coordinate, labeling wearables, signs, business names, payments, and group guild names. So like we would be in a Block Runner guild, right? It'll say Block Runner Will.
Yeah.
And Iman.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Like branding, essentially.
Yeah.
Like the value of a brand.
Yeah, basically.
And I can see that the use case for our games in particular, people are creating brands for their individual metas.
Even the landowners are creating their own brand. Like Studs Barcade.
That's what I'm talking about.
Local Land, you have your own
Yeah, so like let's
guild.
say studs. Let's say whenever this platform has a lot more activity and people are going to studs because he's doing his marketing efforts, and the brand itself is just badass.
Yeah.
And he's getting a lot of user traction. But say like a year down the line, he wants to sell it.
Yeah.
Should that studs brand be included with this block runner, with this pack runner? You know, this is the studs bundle pack. You know, there's value to that. The branding of it all.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
Yeah, Anorak is a super powerful marketer.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
so he would have like probably the biggest guild.
Definitely.
But let's see what else. I think the last question is external links. So we asked that. It's like, why limit the world to just within Decentraland? You should be able to have like webhooks, and
I think that was also because like they wanted to make
tweet from Decentraland.
Yeah, they wanted it like a VR experience, I guess, in the beginning.
Yeah,
probably keep people in.
Yeah,
as much as possible. I guess if you have external links, it's more likely that they're gonna get like pulled out and like not stay within the metaverse.
For sure.
I don't know.
So to the community members, we didn't get to these questions. We apologize.
Yeah.
We want to be respectful of their time too, and you know, we do want to have them back on, like Xavi and Esteban, and those guys too. So I think that's it, man. I think we got that off our chests.
Yeah.
Any final words, Iman?
Like I said, we're gonna keep doing our thing. We're gonna try our best to provide something that's really awesome that Polygonal Mind is doing right now. Is they're putting out blog posts, like I think like once a week now, of like how to create within Decentraland. This is like some important information that needs to be put out for prospective creators. You know, they want to know like I call it a case study. Like Polygonal Mind is a very successful example of what you can pull off in Decentraland. Like I want to bring Toxic Sam on this podcast because he he has an amazing story as far as like his studio has grown. His what do you call it? Like a 3D art studio?
Yeah, 3D art, yeah.
Yeah, like it's grown significantly because of the demand he's generated for his work within Decentraland. So like he's proven that, you know, there's success to be had within this world, and then he's kind of like laying out their experience of how to do it. So you know, future creators can kind of like mimic it, they can understand and do it themselves.
Yeah.
You know, so we need to work on that and use Corv's and Lastrom's experience with like how to operate with the SDK.
You know, that's perfect because, like, for example, Corv is the one who built all the games.
Yeah.
Right, so far. And Crunch, he's the one who built Omniboard.
Right. Yeah.
And so they're so far and PR Pete and
Stern, I forget how to say his name.
Yeah. So they built houses. Those are selling really well on MetaZone too.
Yeah.
So you know, for Corv, like, he's got by far the biggest volume in sales in terms of like mana.
Yeah.
Like I think he's earned like close to like 300,000 mana.
Yeah.
Like from a 70%, you know, creator to a MetaZone split.
Mm-hmm.
Of course he created MetaZone too, but I mean, he basically built the platform, but he's also a creator too. Mm-hmm. And so if a creator can make 300,000 mana in 2 weeks, you know, I'm pretty confident other creators can do the same as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's just one example of like what we're building here is really for developers.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe we're answering our own like question in terms of like, should we be focusing on developers? And we're actually executing on that.
Agreed.
So,
that's what I said. We just keep doing our thing, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
that's all we can do.
Yeah. We're in.
Yeah, and we're not done with the platform. I mean, there's still so many other things that we want to accomplish.
Yeah.
The reason we haven't talked about them is because we haven't gotten there yet. Yeah. So there's still a long way to go.
Yeah. So I guess stay tuned. Keep watching. Keep following what we're doing in the Discord and on Twitter. I mean, we announce everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said, our goal is to be as transparent as possible. So just keep following us. Any little update. I mean, hopefully this. I don't think the podcast will get boring if all we're doing is like talking about updates. I mean, we'll talk about other things.
Yeah, like the pandemic.
Yeah, that and like what other things going on in crypto. Like we definitely want like DeFi integration, so we need to kind of like talk even more about what DeFi is.
Yeah, and
things
maybe
like
dude, we should have Compound.Finance on the podcast.
It would be great.
Yeah, maybe they could sponsor the pot too.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it makes sense, right? For them.
Yeah, I'm hoping. Hopefully, Federico relays the that idea you proposed to him.
Yeah, a no loss sponsorship. I mean, dude, we got to populate that. We gotta like coin that and like actually deploy that concept of no loss sponsorship.
Yeah, like I'm hoping the Decentraland team understands like how valuable that is, because if they're looking to increase user retention or like activity, the only way to do that is to create like
incentives.
Yeah,
incentive structure.
And like right now we have the infrastructure laid out within Decentraland, and it's only going to continue to grow. What we need is more incentive.
Yeah, that's right.
Bigger pot sizes, bigger rewards, and if there's a way to achieve that without anybody losing any money,
Yeah, I mean, I think
and you're strengthening the DeFi ecosystem in return.
In the game.
Come on now.
Plus, in a decentralized world.
Yeah.
I mean, decentralized finance in a decentralized world, dude. The marriage couldn't even been written better than that.
It's true.
I mean, so we need to do that. Decentraland, I think they need to figure out a way to like support community members in different ways in the past, right? And one way would be decentralized finance.
This announcement that the DeFi community made about their initiative to integrate in gaming, what are they looking for? Like an actual?
I need to like
do some more investigation.
Yeah,
right?
just figure out like exactly what they're talking about.
Maybe we'll talk about that on the next podcast then.
Yeah,
we'll start bouncing ideas around.
Yeah, because we got to execute on this. If these opportunities are coming up, we just have to execute.
I agree. Yeah, we can't just let this one slide by. I feel
absolutely not.
Like I said, because we literally just told we have the infrastructure laid out, then we should be able to prove that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then once Decentraland sees that, then
they should take advantage.
I agree.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at The Block Runner and join MetaZone, deploy some games. And, we'll be back here in about a week if they let us go outside.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you very much, and see you next week.
Yeah. Wash your hands. Be safe out there, everybody.
All right.
Peace out.